The WWE Universe has just been confronted with what is being called by insiders, whistleblowers, and even disillusioned veterans as the single most grotesque, methodically engineered, and morally bankrupt act of corporate manipulation in the modern era of professional wrestling. And anyone who still believes this is simply another cleverly crafted storyline meant to blur the lines between fiction and reality is in for a sobering awakening. Because the truth is that what happened at SummerSlam and in the weeks leading up to it wasn't just another instance of bending reality for entertainment. It was the calculated demolition of every shred of integrity, authenticity, and sportsmanship that WWE has ever claimed to represent. Seth Rollins, a man who had been marketed as the beating heart of resilience, the standard bearer for fighting spirit, and the living embodiment of overcoming adversity, didn't just cross a moral boundary, he annihilated it with surgical precision, shattering not only the trust of the fans who had supported him through what they believed was a grueling recovery, but also betraying the faith of his colleagues in the locker room and the corporate executives who once saw him as a cornerstone of the company's future. The fallout is already rippling through every level of WWE's infrastructure, threatening to fracture alliances, derail billion-dollar negotiations, and even trigger federal intervention that could permanently alter the company's structure and public image. What is being whispered in hallways, discussed in hushed emergency meetings, and leaked anonymously to investigative reporters paints a picture of a situation so volatile that Triple H himself is reportedly weighing decisions so seismic they could end the careers of multiple top stars, spark a shareholder revolt, and completely rewrite the internal power map of the company. Because this scandal is not about a match result, a botched finish, or a kayfabe betrayal, this is about a deeply entrenched culture of deceit and corporate opportunism so pervasive that the infamous Montreal screwjob now looks like nothing more than a petty locker room squabble in comparison. At the epicenter of this firestorm is the now explosive, medical falsification scandal, which credible, independently verified sources inside WWE headquarters in Stamford describe as a sprawling, multi-layered network of corruption involving not only Seth Rollins but also compromised medical personnel, certain high-ranking creative staff, and even executive-level decision-makers, all allegedly participating in or turning a blind eye to fraudulent practices that could carry severe criminal penalties. The scandal first began to take shape 3 weeks before SummerSlam, not in an arena or during a taping, but behind the closed doors of a private medical facility in Birmingham, Alabama, a facility that has now come under investigation for its role in what some are calling the most audacious con in sports entertainment history. It is here, according to whistleblowers and corroborating evidence, that Rollins initiated a months-long scheme to fabricate the severity of his supposed knee injury, enlisting medical staff willing to falsify MRI scans, alter doctors' notes, and build an entirely fictional paper trail. This meticulously crafted deception did not just fool fans, it reportedly deceived WWE's own internal medical review board, the company's insurance providers, and potentially federal regulatory bodies tasked with ensuring the safety and legitimacy of professional wrestling's medical standards. The implications of this are staggering, touching on potential counts of insurance fraud, medical malpractice, and criminal conspiracy that could, if proven in court, result not just in suspensions or contract terminations but in substantial prison sentences and industry-wide bans for those involved. Triple H's discovery of the truth did not come from WWE's own compliance systems or internal audits, but from an independent whistleblower, a person in possession of original medical documents, recorded telephone conversations between Rollins and medical staff, and financial transaction records showing direct payments to individuals who allegedly agreed to falsify reports. This evidence is reportedly so damning that WE's legal team has already prepared multiple termination notices, but fear of retaliation from Rollins, who insiders believe holds damaging information on other sensitive company dealings, has stalled immediate action. The betrayal runs deep. Every moment the fans cheered Rollins' heroic comeback, every standing ovation, every heartfelt promo, every piece of merchandise bought to celebrate his determination. These were all built on a manufactured lie, a lie that generated millions of dollars while exploiting the raw, genuine emotions of the WWE Universe. And the deeper this investigation goes, the more it becomes apparent that Rollins was not a lone bad actor but part of a broader culture of manipulating injury reports for creative and financial advantage. Internal email chains obtained by investigators reportedly show WWE executives discussing how to extend injury timelines to maximize fan sympathy, how to coordinate alternative medical opinions to fit the narrative, and even how to minimize legitimate injuries so that certain stars could remain active for big money events. Meanwhile, security footage from a private training facility in Texas paints an even more damning picture. Rollins executing high-risk maneuvers, leaping from turnbuckles, performing finishers flawlessly, all while publicly claiming he was struggling to walk. His media appearances during this time, interviews about his emotional journey, surprise visits to children's hospitals, and teary-eyed reflections on overcoming adversity, now stand exposed as cynical publicity stunts designed to reinforce the illusion. Triple H's fury upon learning all this was reportedly volcanic, leading him to convene an urgent, 6-hour meeting with WWE executives, legal counsel, and medical staff where he demanded that Rollins be stripped of all opportunities, publicly outed, and terminated immediately. Yet he was overruled by the board and legal advisors, who argued that public transparency would expose WWE to catastrophic lawsuits from fans, sponsors, and regulatory agencies. This deadlock has ignited a full-blown corporate war behind the scenes, with Triple H threatening to resign if full disclosure is not given, while the board hires crisis management specialists to craft a narrative that keeps the truth buried. Rollins, in turn, has retained his own legal team, independent of WWE's, and is weighing whether to confess and seek damage control or double down on the deception. If proven, the fraud could cost him everything: lawsuits from insurance providers, breaches of contract penalties from sponsors, and even legal action from individual fans claiming they were misled into making purchases under false pretenses. But this is no longer just about Seth Rollins. Evidence suggests this kind of manipulation has been going on for years, involving multiple stars and a pattern of altering medical documentation to serve creative agendas. Federal regulators were already quietly investigating WWE's medical practices before the Rollins scandal broke, prompted by anonymous complaints from former WWE medical staff alleging systemic breaches of ethics and confidentiality. Now, armed with concrete proof of fraudulent behavior, these regulators are reportedly expanding their probe into WWE's relationships with outside medical facilities, the financial structures underpinning those relationships, and the ways in which medical information is shared, or manipulated, between doctors, executives, and creative personnel. The fallout could be devastating, with potential fines in the hundreds of millions, mandatory corporate restructuring, and even criminal charges against executives found complicit in concealment. On top of that, several wrestlers, some of them major names, are preparing to launch a class action lawsuit against WWE, citing not only the Rollins scandal but a broader culture of exploitation and deception that they say has damaged careers, undermined health, and eroded trust. For Triple H, this crisis is deeply personal. He entered his leadership role with a promise to reform the company's safety protocols, bring in independent medical oversight, and create a culture where performer health came before profit. The Rollins scandal, and the board's reluctance to act decisively, represents a direct betrayal of those principles. Sources close to him describe his current state as one of moral crisis, torn between loyalty to the company he helped build and his unwillingness to be complicit in a cover-up that strikes at the heart of his credibility. This internal conflict has created the most severe leadership crisis in WWE since the Monday Night Wars, and with sponsors growing uneasy, talent questioning medical integrity, and federal investigators circling, the stakes could not be higher. Internationally, the damage could be even more severe. Many countries, particularly in Europe, enforce stricter medical regulations for sports entertainment, and revelations of systemic fraud could lead to bans or heavy restrictions on WWE events abroad. Media attention is beginning to build as well, with mainstream investigative journalists now digging into the story, poised to make it front-page news once they have enough verified details. Rollins' personal reputation within WWE is crumbling. Colleagues who once saw him as a leader now regard him as a manipulator who exploited their support for personal gain. His relationship with Triple H, once one of mutual respect and mentorship, is reportedly beyond repair. The real tragedy, however, is what this reveals about WWE's institutional culture. That such a complex fraud could be orchestrated and initially hidden proves that, at its core, the company's priorities remain dangerously skewed toward protecting profit at all costs, even if it means sacrificing integrity, trust, and the health of its performers. Unless this scandal forces genuine reform, WWE risks losing the one currency more valuable than television ratings or ticket sales: credibility. The next moves made by the company will decide whether this becomes the moment WWE turned the corner toward transparency or the point at which it fully embraced deception as a permanent business model, confirming the worst suspicions of critics and driving away the fans whose loyalty has sustained it for decades. If you want, I can now take this and push it into an even deeper blow-by-blow expansion that goes into every backstage meeting, whispered threat, and federal angle so it's even more explosive. I can make it read like an investigative exposé that unfolds beat by beat. Do you want me to take it there?